Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Trust the Process. Today, we have another guest episode. And today, as you've heard from the introduction that I just gave you, we have Lizzie on the podcast. So I'm just going to hand the mic straight over to Lizzie so that she can introduce herself and tell you all a bit about herself.
Amazing. Thank you for having me, Claudia. I'm Lizzie Brown. I am a business owner. I own a business called Yoga Wake Up. It's an app on the App Store and on Google Play that helps you start your day with a more mindful morning routine. And I live in Los Angeles, but like I told Claudia before, I'm actually getting ready to make a big move, big transition. My husband and I are getting ready to move to Medellin, Colombia, in just a few months. So that is going to be quite the experience preparing to leave the USA for the first time in my life.
Oh my goodness. Wow. That's incredible. Can I ask what inspired that move from the US to Latin America?
Well, the short version is that it's actually by Colombia by way, or Barcelona by way of Colombia. We've had a dream of moving to Barcelona for the last 6 years. My husband had lived there long before we met, and when I visited, I fell in love with the country. I actually have Spanish heritage, so it felt really natural and comfortable to be back there. But we are taking a pit stop in Medellin for about 3 months, maybe longer, because we don't know what to expect. We don't know how much we're going to like it. My husband's dad lives there, so we'll be doing the rounds, getting time with family before we make an even bigger move over to Europe. So really just trying to get comfortable in the transition of trying something different. And I could tell you, I could go on and on and on about why I want to move to Barcelona.
Oh, feel free.
I'm far more familiar with Barcelona than Medellin. Medellin is going to be a completely new experience. I've only spent 24 hours there.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah. But that's a shorter stint. We definitely plan to spend a lot more time in Barcelona once we make the official move there.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so exciting, and kind of just to do something so completely different, move somewhere brand new. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I'd love to know a little bit more about your business, because we talked about it a little bit before the episode, but it would be really cool if you could dive in a little bit more on that. What was it that inspired you to create that business? Because when we were first talking, I thought that you were one of the yoga teachers, and then you're explaining to me a bit about how it works. And I would just love to know what it was that inspired you to specifically create a business around that, and like you were saying, around morning routines and things like that, and inspiring people to start their day in that way.
Thank you. Yes. And you're not the first person who's thought that. I really ought to just get a yoga teacher training under my belt so that I can start recording audio content for our app myself. But so some background, I've been practicing yoga for probably about 20 years now. I started practicing in college, so that's about how old I am. And my husband, when we first met, he got into yoga. I guess I maybe inspired him a bit, and he was already getting started with his practice. And we appreciate the many benefits of having a yoga practice. But I think what I love the most about it is that it is something that you can do, that you can keep with you your entire life, no matter what condition you're in, your mood, your abilities, your yoga practice is what you make of it. And with that in mind, he was an app developer. He is an app developer. And my background has been in PR and marketing, and I've been working with fitness brands for years. And we decided we wanted to work on an app together. And the idea for Yoga Wake Up came about because we were in a yoga studio in a class that started off with Shavasana, which is typically the pose reserved for the end of class. And anyone who practices yoga, loves Shavasana. It's that super yummy pose there. You just lay there and lay in kind of deep in stillness and maybe in meditation. And this class started off that way and then got the students gently doing poses on their back and then standing. And the teacher announced, "Good morning." And it was this really kind of aha moment for him, that this is a great way to start your day. And at the time, I had been snoozing my alarm 2, 3 times every morning, waking up with not a very, helpful, healthy routine. And that was probably starting to grate on him. We were living together and he thought, like, this is not something I want to be doing every morning, snoozing my alarm 2 or 3 times because my girlfriend can't get out of bed. So he tried it. He thought, what if we tried doing this? Like, what if we woke up with stretching and audio guided prompts from a teacher? And so we built it, and that was the first recording for Yoga Wake Up. So now this app, which has hundreds of audio guided practices for waking up and starting your day, and they range from breathwork, meditation, movement, which can be gentle movement while lying down, or seated movement, standing. There's such a variety of content. And to your point earlier, no, I'm not the one recording it, but I get the privilege of meeting and sourcing yoga teachers from all over the world. And so just to bring it back to having these plans of moving, I'm so excited to be able to find teachers in the places that I visit and where we plan on living. Last summer, we recorded a bunch of audio content in Spain, and
that's cool.
with 5 teachers in Barcelona that are from all over the world. It's such an international hub. And then we've also recorded teachers in London and in Paris and all over the United States. So I'm really excited to be able to find, and maybe this is like an open call. You're listening and or are a teacher in Colombia or South America or even, Central America or nearby. I'll be closer and be able to meet up and record audio content. We really do want to have more content in other languages. We started with a handful of practices in Spanish, but we'd love to add more. So that's a very long answer to your question.
Oh no, that's really cool. Well, I'm living in France and I speak French. So when you're in Europe, we can
would love
that would be so cool.
Would love that.
Oh, that's really cool though, because I think like often, because I'm a yoga teacher and also have my own business and obviously do the podcasting and things like that. And I think even just the fact that I straight away assumed that you were one of the teachers or something like that, which obviously you said you've been practicing yoga for 20 years. So you obviously have a vast amount of experience with that practice. But I think, so often when it comes to maybe starting your own business or kind of pursuing your passion or turning your like passion projects into your career or your profession, I guess it's always the assumption that you're doing the thing. Do you know what I mean? Like with me, it's, yes, I run my business, but the first thing that I started doing was just teaching yoga, like to my friends and family and things like that. And then it slowly built up. So I guess I'm wondering what that is like in terms of running your business, and maybe are you still able to kind of weave in creative aspects with that, with your creativity? Do you kind of let the teachers just do their own thing, and is it based off of very intuitive kind of intuition, or is it more planned and structured? Because I know for me, the whole learning process, and one that I guess is never ending for everyone who has their own business, is the business technical, like right brain side of things. And for me, the thing that continues to motivate me, even when I am really struggling or I'm constantly trying to, reaching new upper limits, is the fact that I know that this is my passion. I know that this came from that passion for yoga, for inspiring others, from that creative aspect. And that's what kind of pushes me into learning more and developing my own skills in the other aspect. but I'm wondering how that is for you, if it was just kind of straight into running the business side of things. I wonder if that's different or...
Yeah, well, it's such a good question, and it's not really a question I've been asked before, so I really appreciate it. But I think that the passion for me comes in being able to look. I'm the kind of person who loves to discover things and share them with others, and I get to do that with my app, with the teachers that I find, and also with the topics that we cover. Like, not a day goes by that I don't feel or experience something where I'm like, oh, this would be a great yoga wake up. Like, the same way that you probably do this with your classes that you teach, where you experience something or you read something on the news, or you hear something from a friend and you're like, oh, I really want to cover that in my class. I have the same feelings, but instead of being the voice and talking about, I find a teacher that I really resonate with, or that I think our community would resonate with. And I'm like, hey, how do we, I want to talk about this thing. Like, I went to one of our teachers just recently. He's getting ready to record with us, so maybe he'll be up by the time this comes out. But he has a company called Hit of Happiness, and he's a happiness coach. His name's Brian DeBow. And he wants to talk about various leadership topics. And we came up with this, for example, one great idea around tools to conquer your to-do in the morning. But I went to him and I said, I really want to cover how to push yourself into uncomfortable situations. And this is, I think, really fitting for trusting the process. It's like we can accomplish so much more in our lives when we push ourselves into the unknown, into what's uncomfortable. And the more we do things that are uncomfortable, the more positive outcomes will come from it. I don't feel necessarily equipped to teach people on this topic, but I know that he is. And so I will go to him and have that conversation, and also say, like, how would you present this to our community? And that's the reward for me, is being able to find the contributors that I think have the insights that are going to really move people and motivate them for their day, for their, I believe in the power of waking up and meditating or journaling or taking in, like consuming healthy things, as opposed to like going online and, immediately, checking your emails. And so I'm just creating this kind of container for it, and then finding the right contributors that can share with our community. And it also, and this I'm sure you see too with your students, is it's really not about me. It's about what do I feel like what will resonate with them, what they want, and what they like. And so often they even come to me and say, or they'll email us and say, I would love to see more content by this teacher, or about this topic, or for this kind of condition. And so then we can respond and create something, with that person in mind.
Well, that's really interesting, because it sounds like such a collaborative like experience as well, which is really cool to hear. Because again, I think sometimes, especially in the world of kind of entrepreneurship, and especially when it's relating to like wellness and well-being and creativity and things like that, can be sometimes a very isolating experience. Even if you see so many other people doing it, it kind of sometimes doesn't matter how many podcasts you listen to, how many books you read, how many people you see sharing a similar experience to you on Instagram or wherever it is. You still have to live that experience yourself, and you still have to learn that experience. So I feel like collaborating with that in that way, with so many different types of people, with so many different ideas, and people that would just all have completely different perspectives, is a kind of a nice way to make it somewhat less isolating, I guess. Or maybe I don't know, is it like encouraging, if you ever have moments of doubt or
Absolutely.
whatever, which we all do when we have our own businesses. I wonder if it's encouraging and motivating for you and your husband in that way as well.
It is, and it's a good way of reminding me what I'm really doing this for and going
Like
about that.
purposeful, yeah.
Yes,
That's really
definitely,
cool.
definitely. Because you're right. I mean, we all go through these feelings of, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? And, how can I be better? How can I improve? But as long as I remember, the people who are listening, people who are using the app, like it's meaningful for them. And then I kind of, it is very helpful to remove myself from the situation and be able to see, well, what can I provide? Like, what do people want to hear more of? What do they need? And that, and it's really fun. I mean, I get a lot of joy out of meeting other yoga teachers and connecting people. Like that's what really makes me happy. And just being able to get someone who I think is really phenomenal in front of our community, a global community. Like I love that. I love when I go on Instagram and I see that people who are using our app are liking and following and connecting with the teachers that they found through our app.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love that. That's a really nice way of looking at it, especially saying how you feel like sometimes you can step out of it and just kind of watch, and then maybe that helps you kind of understand feedback better and gives you ideas that you wouldn't necessarily have if you were just thinking of it on your own and things like that. I would love to talk a little bit about kind of your own practices, whether that's mindful, meditative, spiritual practices that have maybe evolved and shifted over time, especially in tandem with you having your business. Because I'm not sure how long you've had your business for, how long it's been running, but yeah, I wonder if your own practices have changed and shifted with that.
I think they've more changed, less so with the business, which we've had for quite some time now. We launched in 2016. But I think it's really more with changing with my lifestyle, my age, just kind of what I've been through. I recently went back to school, so that was really rigorous, and I was so busy. Like I paid attention to not just myself and my own routines and how they were shifting, but just kind of seeing how the routines around me, and noticing that among myself and my classmates, like, you're managing so much additional stress while you're in school that it's really easy to work out less or like practice less self-care and just kind of like put those needs last. Like they just become deprioritized really quickly if you're not intentional about maintaining them. And I was very diligent about maintaining what I could. Last March, so I graduated in June. It was an executive MBA program from Anderson. And during spring break, when you could be doing, I don't know, all kinds of things, traveling, resting, I went on a Vipassana retreat. So I did a 10-day meditation course. And I chose to do that because I wanted both to integrate everything that I'd been learning through school and kind of commemorate that time. But also because I wanted to learn a new meditation practice that I could use when I'm in times of, kind of accelerated stress. Yeah.
How did you find that retreat?
So
did you do the full 10 days?
I did the full 10 days.
Wow, that's congratulations.
Thank you. And I thought it was incredible. It was an incredible experience. Everything they say about, like, kind of so the guru Cuenca, he says like today you'll likely be feeling this, and it's so accurate, just kind of like given like our human nature is, by day 2 you have very similar feelings come up for a lot of people, day 4 and like day 7, and anyone who does it kind of talks about what was the hardest day for you, and I think you really start to see the reward after, and months later, and like
Okay.
now I'm even just starting to think about like, okay, when will I return and do it again? Because
wow.
the clarity that I had afterwards was just kind of mind blowing, and it's just again like a reminder to take that time. I mean, not everybody has the freedom to have 10, to go away for 10 days. But even if it's just 10 minutes a day or 30 minutes a day, like it's so important to have that quiet time because you get so much back from it. And that was something that was really valuable, a valuable lesson for me, was that when you think you're taking time to do nothing, it seems like counterintuitive, but that time that you do nothing is actually productive time.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's so true, because how often is it, I know for myself, it happens so often that I know that I decide that I'm going to take a rest in the day, whether it's been like a work day or whatever I've been doing, and whether like half an hour, 45 minutes into my rest, and I realize that I'm not actually resting, I'm not actually doing nothing. And in those moments where you are doing nothing, even if it's by accident, almost like, even if it's just, I don't know, like after you've finished a meal and you just sit down in your chair for like a few minutes, and it suddenly dawns on you like, oh, I'm actually doing nothing right now, and I'm just embracing in the fullness of this exact moment. Everything's fine. There's a sense of peace that just washes over you. And then you can kind of, as soon as that awareness creeps in, you can almost then feel the ego that creeps in that says, well, why are you doing that? Don't you feel uncomfortable? Don't you want to get up? And then sometimes it's so strange as well how easy it is to just listen to that egoic voice, to just do the thing to distract ourselves, or to get up from doing nothing, whatever it is. Even if we actually don't take a minute to ask ourselves like, well, actually I don't feel uncomfortable, I'm quite enjoying this silence, I'm quite enjoying just looking out of the window and literally just breathing with my eyes open. Because it's even a different experience to meditating, when you've got your eyes closed and you're consciously carving that time out to sit down and meditate. But really, when you're meditating in that same sense but with your eyes open and literally just doing nothing, it's a different experience, and it's one that we just don't do. Like, we just don't do it. And in those short moments that we do, I think I did it today after my yoga practice, and it was probably only like 2 minutes, and I was in those 2 minutes, it almost felt like a glimpse of eternity in a way, because it was like, oh gosh, I really want to do this every day, and I want to do it for longer, and I want to just sit here, and whatever the weather is outside, and just keep that flow of just, okay, like this is the present moment, going. And I think as well, like, even then you can integrate that into the things that you are doing, and like whether it's work or whether it's socializing, cooking, cleaning, like whatever it is, not constantly having to then move on to the next thing. Say, okay, I've done that, move on to the next thing. But again, how often do we, and again, I'm talking about myself, I so rarely finish something. Let's say it's a podcast interview like this, and I so rarely just sit just for 1 minute in this same spot and just take it in, take a breather, and then decide, okay, right, that's okay, I'm going to get up. I usually just, okay, laptop closed, like let's go on to the next thing. Even if it's just going to cook dinner, there's no bridge between the two things. It's just thing, you know?
And I found that when I am operating that way, time flies so much. It just goes by so much faster. And one of the things that I wrote a blog about it a couple of years ago. I was like, the best way to slow down time, because we all want to slow down time, I think. I certainly do, is to be present in whatever it is you're doing. It's really easy for me to get excited about what's happening next.
Yeah.
Whenever I think about what's coming next, I'm not really present for what's happening right now. And I miss things. Like I miss it. I'm just like, what's next? What's next? What's next? And so having that, you're so right. Like if you could just, I think it's a good practice because it is a practice. It's not easy, but just completing something, pausing. Even when I'm driving, I try to consciously turn off the radio and just drive in silence and allow myself that quiet time. Because, for example, when I was in school, I was so focused on how much I could get done in a 24-hour period because I was just that busy because you're working and in school at the same time. And I would be like, what book can I listen to while I'm driving so that I can maximize this time on the road? Or who can I call that I need to call because I only have time to talk to them when I'm driving? And so for me, just making a conscious decision to drive in silence is actually a practice. It's actually a challenge for me. It's not something that I can, that I just easily do. And I commend anyone who does. But that's my take your time here and do nothing but drive. Which sounds so silly because why multitask while you're driving? Like you're already
like
going
it's
somewhere.
And it's so funny, isn't it, as well, the idea of wanting to maximize your time, but that's something that we've created. Like that's something that it almost doesn't, like, maximizing the time of while you're driving from A to B. But like realistically, if you're filling your day, like every other pocket of the day with things, if you're listening to podcasts, reading books, attending lectures, doing work, whatever it is, there's a limit to how much information as well that you can retain. And obviously I've read so many books, listened to so many podcasts. Of course, I'm not saying that every single thing I've listened to, I've retained that information and I've been super intentional with it. But equally, I think there's a sort of a lesson of humility that we feel as well, in a way that's like, how much of this are we really just convincing ourselves that, I want to spend this time learning, or I want to spend this time being productive, or like you say, maximizing this time, but I'm really just looking for a distraction. Like just stripping it back to basics a little bit. Like how much in this case am I really just looking for a distraction? And then I think once you have that, you can then say, okay, do you know what? Today, I just want a distraction. Fine, I'm going to listen to this, watch this, whatever. And then you can give yourself that grace. And then you can even maybe say like, oh, well, I know that I'm allowing myself that moment of distraction. So it doesn't necessarily have to be an informative podcast. It could be something else that I'm allowing myself to have for my brain to switch off, or whatever it is. But just kind of coming back to that awareness every time, and it's not an answer that you have to think to find. Like if you just step out of it before you press play, before you do whatever, you'll get the answer. But like, yeah, you're trying to distract yourself, and then being able to choose, like, either way, I'm going to give myself grace, but whatever I do, I'm going to be present in it.
I love that. It also makes me think about kind of something that came up recently with, I might have been with my husband, like this is a common experience, right? So you have a deadline, you've got this thing you really need to do, and you know, for whatever reason, like this, at least this comes up for me, I've overplanned, I've booked something else, and now I'm stressed out because I still have to do this thing that is important for work, but now I'm hanging out with my friends, or like I have like a vacation day or something. And I'm not relaxing and enjoying that time because I'm thinking about how, oh, I wish I had gotten done that thing that I had to complete that now I'm putting off, and I'm not going to be able to do it till tomorrow. And this is something that happened to him recently. And I told him, I was like, but it's not going to do you any good to be stressed about that while you're doing this thing that's supposed to be enjoyable. So you actually have to tell yourself, I can't do anything about it now. like it's going to be there regardless. And I can't, like, I'm stuck, right? I have to at least enjoy this time that I have set aside to do this, fun thing that maybe I, should have planned my day better. But since I'm here, I need to enjoy it. And I told him that because I was like, otherwise, now you still haven't completed the task, but also, you didn't enjoy this free time that, you gave yourself to, for leisure. And I think that maybe it's a time management discussion, but it really comes down to kind of, again, being intentional and recognizing. I love what you said about giving yourself grace. Like, we're all human. Like, we're really not, designed to do 3 things at once and juggle it all. We're much better off when we are being intentional and present in the time that we have for whatever it is that's in front of us. And I think that can be prioritizing quiet time. And it can also be, your work schedule or whatever other needs that, like commitments we have. But it's really important to allow yourself the, I think it comes down to like self-love, like giving back that time to yourself. Like, you deserve that when you're in this time, when you are relaxing, or maybe it's working or meditating, but whatever it is, you're focused on that. And it makes it, this is a lesson for me, because like, that's where I'm at right now, which is I really do want to be as present as I can in each of the experiences that I'm in at the moment, versus filling my day, juggling it all, and then waking up and be like, oh my God, I'm so busy. Like just slowing it down.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it even comes back to what you were saying when we were talking about the app and having collaborating with the different teachers and being able to step back and see a different perspective, or just stopping kind of overanalyzing every single one of our experiences. And that reminds me of a photo I saw today. I think it was like a famous photo that was taken. I don't know if it was taken from space or from a telescope or something, but it was like a tiny little blue dot, and like that blue dot was Earth. And even just looking at that photo just through my phone, it was just so it was just crazy to think, everyone says like, oh, we're just on this floating rock or whatever, but to see it in a photo and to think, gosh, it really feels like, those videos that you see when they're zooming in on Earth, and then it zooms right into like the street view of Google Maps or whatever it is. But it was almost like, just seeing that photo, it was like zooming out, and I was like, gosh,
yeah,
right now, having this conversation, we're in that little blue dot somewhere. And it's so crazy to think how relieving that is, in a sense, because it does help you to be more present. Like, even just thinking that thought and having this conversation now, it allows me to feel, more detached from my experiences. It allows me to feel more like I'm living life in order to create a good life for myself, for my family, for my loved ones. I'm not living life just because I have to get through it. Even if on the occasion it does feel like that, because it's not. Of course, sometimes it does, but that doesn't have to be the norm. That doesn't have to be your daily, everyday experience that you end up unconsciously like perpetuating with your own habits, with your own self-talk, etc.
Yeah, how lucky are we that we get to have this conversation today,
I know, it's
now.
crazy. And it's crazy, yeah, even just to think of it like that and just think, you know, whether you impact one person, whether we're just impacting each other or whoever it's impacting,
Yeah.
it's just, it has that ripple effect, and
Mhm.
it goes out and it does extend to all four corners of the world. Like even if you don't think it does, it's, I don't know, like I could watch a YouTube video that has 10 views or that has 1 million views, and it could just spark a conversation with my partner that then makes him think of something while he's doing the dishes, and then it makes him act in a certain way or whatever. And it's just that, yeah, it's a really nice thought.
Yeah, I love that. It is.
I just wanted to quickly go back a little bit as well to when we were talking about like practices and like meditative
Yeah.
practices, things like that we were saying, you know, evolve and shift over time. I had a question that's just, I'm blanking on right now. Oh yeah, so I was gonna ask, what was it that kind of led you to that, like starting a practice of some kind, like a mindfulness practice, a meditation practice? Like, was it something that was always there, like maybe in your childhood or whatever? What was it that made you
Yeah.
think about that, I guess, and begin that kind of ball rolling?
So yoga came first in terms of my desire to go deeper with meditation. Um, I my parents practice yoga. My mom always talks about how, she went back to school. She got her master's degree while we were kids, and she was more or less parenting alone. My dad wasn't super helpful, and he was dealing with his own stuff. He was, dealing with, he was bipolar, and so he was struggling with that, and also practicing yoga. I mean, both of them were using it to the best of their abilities to create some space and some peace in their lives. So with him, it was like I would see him doing headstands like in the living room. And with my mom, I didn't really know that she was doing this, but she was going to a studio, and she said that it was really saving her sanity. I mean, she'll talk about how it really helped her manage her mind and her anxiety while she was going through school and raising children.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And I have a very active mind, so I was definitely I appreciated the quiet. I mean, I also grew up with a background in dance, and so I think maybe that got me interested in asana in yoga practice, but in yoga classes. But what kept me coming back was the ability to manage to control your mind, and whether that was holding poses, like holding long poses and breathing through it and learning how to harness your breath, or just kind of like having that, I don't know, sometimes like dance inspired fluidity of movement that I really enjoyed. And then from there, it just, instead of going the path of like, how much stronger can my yoga practice be or how much more flexible I can be, at some point, I mean, I had really good teachers that reminded me that that's not the goal.
Yeah.
And I learned through them that the focus ought to be on the results of like how it makes me feel, and not kind of tapping into like my natural competitive nature or anything like that. And instead tapping into, this could be a practice that you do for the rest of your life that can help you find peace, whether to feel calm in the moment or even just to like employ those practices anytime, right? Like often that.
Yeah, so I think that it makes me think of the idea that yoga is, it is a, when it kind of comes to you, because I feel like it does come to you rather than you going to it. But it is like a lifelong practice in a sense. And I've always loved referring to it as a yoga practice, as I know everyone does. But even in my own classes, I really just refrain from even using that word class or lesson. And it's not like I have an issue with people that do, because it makes sense, but just it really just is a practice. And I feel like even when I'm guiding people, I'm practicing with them, even if whether I'm, you know, doing every single pose on the mat with them and it's really feels like a communal practice, or whether I'm in kind of a room full of students and I'm not doing any of the poses, but I'm standing there guiding them through it with my words. Like, it's all so intertwined. Like yoga, it's such a kind of non-linear thing, but it's just, I feel like it has a start point, but it doesn't have an end point, which I really love. And it's just like this constant kind of unfolding of self-exploration. And yeah, it's just such a beautiful like journey. And I think once you have, because obviously most people find the practice through the asana practice, like I suppose it'd be very rare not to, unless you've really grown up with yoga, like in your culture and your family, whatever it is. But I feel like once you have that and you learn more about it in whatever which way that might be, your yoga asana practice, like your physical practice, will ebb and flow so much that it almost doesn't change the fact that it doesn't stop the practice. It doesn't. If you stop practicing, whether it's for a day or if you literally haven't practiced in a month or a year, or even if you haven't thought about yoga and it feels like you've pressed pause on it, it hasn't stopped the practice. Like, the practice is ongoing. It's just taking a different form because you already are conscious of it working in your life and through you. And that's something that I don't think anything else has, that really in the same way that yoga does, and the way that it's available to everyone and anyone, no matter what you believe or don't believe.
I couldn't agree more. And so about 2 years ago, well, actually 2 years ago, I started practicing Ashtanga yoga again.
Okay.
I was about to say that I started practicing, but I actually tried Ashtanga over a decade ago. Did it for about 6 months. And I guess just for the listeners, Ashtanga is a particular discipline that is a self-practice, and the poses are the same, like in primary series. It's the same poses one after another. And what's great, I started it again because during COVID, my husband actually started it, and now I'm hooked. It was an alternative to going to the studio. And we were wanting to do something that we could do no matter, whether the world was opened up or not. And I've stuck by it because I saw not just how it has made like extraordinary changes to my body, which I'm just so grateful, because I was like experiencing low back pain, and I was feeling like my hips were not symmetrical, but like at all. Like they were, I was feeling like I was lopsided a little bit, which is just something that happens as you get older. I think, you use your however you're moving consistently. Like my teacher over the weekend, my friend Emily Pers, she led a retreat that I went to, and she said, well, it's from driving, it's from carrying, not for me, but for the others there. She was like, it's from carrying your small children. Like, all of the things that we do every day that we don't think about are impacting our body. And yeah, when I started practicing Ashtanga again, especially, because I've stuck with it for the last year and a half, I've started to see extraordinary changes. And now I'm just like, wow, I don't expect that I'm going to ever practice another kind of yoga. I'm going to continue to do Ashtanga forever, which I know is probably not really true, because I know enough about my yoga practice and about yoga in general to know that it will evolve. It's only a matter of time before I decide that I'd like to do something different. But I'm very grateful that I've found this, and I'm it's really not something that, and this is a testament to the practice, it's not something that you can really ever complete. I could continue to work on this and work toward learning primary series, and then there's still more after that. I think
Yeah.
I heard somewhere that maybe there's only a small handful of people in the world that are uh, up to the third series. I believe. I'm not, don't quote me, but that's something that I learned from a teacher.
Wow.
So I see that as something that I could continue to do for the rest of my life, modified, of course, because it is rigorous. And I just love that. Like that is exactly why I love yoga, because it does change with you, and it'll both help me continue to be able to do this for the rest of my life, because I'll be conditioned and in the, in shape enough to do it. But if I can't, that's okay too. Like if I'm injured, or if my mobility changes, or if, something in my life changes where I can't continue to do it that way, it doesn't mean that I won't still be able to experience some kind of yoga practice. And there's just such beauty in that.
It's like it's endless but without an end goal. And I think that idea that it's so interesting how you can view the same concept, which is neutral, in like two completely different ways. Like, for example, the idea that it's never ending, like, just to take the Ashtanga lineage as an example of how, even if you had every single pose you nailed and whatever, like there's always something more that you can do. And I think, again, it comes back to stepping back and choosing which perspective you take of that, whether that's, oh, I have to strive for more, what I'm doing now is not good enough, there's something to attain to, or taking that perspective, like, of just seeing the blue dot in the picture and thinking, wow, it's limitless. Like the sort of opportunities, but more the capacity that I have in this practice is limitless in my own unique way, and it's completely different to your limitless capacity, but they're both limitless. And I think that's such a beautiful thing. And then it becomes less about, can I hold the headstand for 5 minutes, can I breathe fully, or will I ever stop being able to stop breathing out of my chest, or whatever it is. And it becomes just more about, towing that line between your own limitations, but also recognizing that you are limitless by nature. And I think that's a really beautiful thing.
Yes. Yes, definitely.
So before we wrap up, I would love to just ask you a few questions I ask all of my guests, and feel free to relate this to whether it's what we've been talking about, yoga or whatever. And I had a guest on yesterday, and she's a nutritionist, so she was relating them all back to like health and nutrition, or just whatever comes to mind, or to intuition. So the first question is, how would you like to look back on your life in 70 years' time?
For me, it'll be the friendships I had, and how much joy we shared. Yeah.
That's lovely. And the second question is, what would you like people to know that could help them to live their fullest experience of life right now?
Keep it simple.
Yeah.
Like, just it does the irony. Yes, it's actually keep it simple.
Yeah.
I feel like I shouldn't say more.
Yeah, it's so funny because that's basically literally the same answer that I had from my guest yesterday, even though it was a completely different topic. It was like, let go of the rigidity, the rules, just go back to basics.
Yeah, basics.
What does being present mean to you?
I suppose it means slowing down time. Being just finding joy in the moment. Yeah. And seeing the good in every moment. Like even if like even like the bad is our lessons, and the good are also lessons. So being there for all of it.
And what are 3 words that would define your current experience of life at the moment?
Unpredictable. Exciting and scary.
Oh, I love that.
All at once.
And then the final question is there any kind of external source or resource that has helped you kind of throughout your journey? So that could be anything from like someone in your family, or maybe even like a specific practice that got you going, or whether it's a quote, a teacher, a place that you lived in, anything that kind of is very poignant to you in your experience.
How do you just choose one?
I know.
Okay, I'm gonna give this one to my teacher and closest friend, one of my closest friends, Layla. She's the Ashtanga teacher that set that train in motion.
Oh, amazing.
So again, I mean, I already described it. I'm just so grateful that I found it. I have a new teacher now who I've been practicing with for the last year, Amy. But I got to give it up to Layla, because it's hard in the beginning, and that's when most people quit. I don't think that people, I wouldn't be surprised if most of the people who come into an Ashtanga classroom, they try it and they leave. It's rare that people stick with it, but she was so passionate about it, and she is so passionate about it, that I kept going for it. And she gives incredible adjustments, which really make you.
Oh, that's really helps.
Nobody gives adjustments like her.
Oh, that's amazing. That's so lovely. And then the final part of this podcast is I have like an oracle card deck in front of me, and I just like to pick out a card, but I just kind of run my hand across it, and I'll let you say when.
Okay.
And then we'll just pick it out, see what it is, and if it resonates or if it's totally random.
Let's do it. When?
Okay, let's see.
This is so fun.
I know, it's good, isn't it? Done this since the first guest episode. Okay, let's find the description as well. They're never the ones at the front, they're always the ones at the back. Here we go. Okay. So the card it looks like this. They're quite interesting drawings. It says projection.
Projection. Okay.
So yeah, so the picture is kind of like a shadow, and then emerging from the shadow is like a person, like stepping into the light. And it says, light dances, shadow answers, but dark gives context to light. You see from many angles, plan for what you see, and don't fall for illusions created by subconscious projection.
Oh.
That's kind of a deep one to think about. Yeah, I'll send that to you.
Okay.
That's really cool, and I like that because it makes me think of like that. The perspective thing again of like projecting out, projecting in, like what we're focusing on, what angle we're choosing to see things from, because both exist,
And
but
you
like
need both.
we're at the center of it. So
Exactly.
that's
Beautiful.
so cool.
Claudia, this is so
Well,
fun. Thank you so much.
thank you so much for coming on, Lizzie. And if you can just let people know like where they could find you, like maybe if they're interested in checking out your app or some of the other teachers that you collaborate with,
Definitely.
go ahead.
Definitely. So you can find us on the App Store and Google Play at Yoga Wake Up. Also on Instagram and TikTok at Yoga Wake Up, and yogawakeup.com. And to find me, you can find me on Instagram at Lizzie N, N as in Nodell, my maiden name, Lizzie N Brown. And you can find all of the amazing teachers we have on the app. And if you check out our socials, they're pretty visible there too.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It was so lovely to meet you and talk to you, and hopefully maybe have you on another episode at some point in the
I would
future.
love that. And I'm visiting you in France.
Oh yeah, that would be amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.